There is a sound that can pull you out of the present moment faster than almost anything else. The screech and hiss of a modem trying to connect. You hear it now, even just in your head, and suddenly you're not in your 30s anymore. You're sitting on the floor of a hallway, phone line tied up, waiting for a screen to load one piece at a time. Nobody is rushing you. Nobody else needs the line right now. That was just Tuesday. And if that gave you a small jolt somewhere in your chest, you're probably a millennial. Born roughly between 1981 and 1996, this generation grew up straddling two completely different worlds. The first half of childhood was analog. The second half rebuilt itself around a screen. No other generation lived through that exact split, and it shaped you in ways most people never stop to examine. So today we're going through 10 of those experiences, the small, ordinary moments that quietly wired your brain. Because the psychology behind this kind of nostalgia is more interesting and more revealing than it first appears. Let's get into it. The first one is the dial-up wait. Getting online wasn't instant. It was a process, almost a ritual. You'd click connect, then sit through a sequence of clicks, static, and rising tones before anything happened. Sometimes it failed halfway through and you had to start over. That wait wasn't empty time. Researchers who study anticipation have found that the brain treats a delayed reward as more valuable than an instant one, as long as the wait isn't unbearable. You weren't just loading a web page, you were building suspense for it. Compare that to today, where a 2-second buffering icon feels like a personal insult. Millennials got an early, repeated lesson in tolerating delay, and most of you don't even remember learning it. Then there's memorizing the home phone number. Not your own cell because you didn't have one yet. The landline, the one number that mattered most. You knew your best friend's number, your grandparents' number, maybe one or two others, cold, no hesitation. That same brain now blanks on a 4-digit door code you typed in yesterday. The difference isn't that your memory got worse. It's that your phone now remembers everything, so your brain quietly stopped bothering. But back then, a memorized number meant something. It meant that person was reachable, fixed, real. There's also the answering machine as a small emotional event. You'd come home and see a blinking red light, and there was a tiny spike of anticipation before you even pressed play. Who called? What did they want? Was it good news or something you'd have to deal with? Voicemail today barely registers. Back then, that blinking light was unresolved information sitting in your living room until you dealt with it. Psychologists call this an open loop, an unfinished piece of information the brain can't fully let go of until it's closed. Millennials grew up with dozens of small open loops a week, and somewhere in there, you learn to sit with that itch instead of resolving it instantly. Then there's the rented movie deadline. Friday night meant a trip to the video store, and whatever you picked was the only movie you were watching that weekend. There was no second choice once you got home. You committed at the counter, and then there was the return deadline, a real one, with a late fee attached if you missed it. That manufactured scarcity made the choosing itself feel important. You weighed it. You debated with your siblings. Streaming removed the deadline and the limit, and with it, some of the weight that decision used to carry. There's the playground without a safety mat underneath it. Metal slides that burned your legs in summer. Merry-go-rounds that kids would spin until someone nearly flew off. Monkey bars over hard-packed dirt or gravel, not rubber padding. Nobody was filming it. Nobody was tracking injuries in real time. You fell, you got up, you went back to whatever you were doing before the fall. That kind of unsupervised physical risk has dropped sharply for kids today, and there's an entire body of research now suggesting that the constant removal of small risks in childhood may be connected to higher anxiety later in life, not lower. Millennials got a strange kind of advantage almost nobody designed on purpose. There's the encyclopedia set, or the library, as the only way to actually know something. If you didn't already know it and nobody around you knew it either, you had two options. Walk to the bookshelf if your house had the right volume, or wait until the library was open. There was no shortcut. The answer existed somewhere, but getting to it cost you time and effort. That cost is mostly gone now, and with it went something subtle, The experience of simply not knowing for a while and being okay with that, because not knowing yet wasn't a crisis. It was just where you were until you found out. Then there's burning a CD like it was a small act of devotion. You picked the songs in order on purpose. The sequence mattered as much as the songs themselves. Then you waited while the burner clicked and whirred, hoping the disc didn't skip when you tested it. If it failed halfway through, you started the whole thing over without complaining, because that was just how it worked. This is effort justification in its purest form, a well-documented pattern where people assign more value to things that cost them real time and frustration to create. A playlist built in 4 seconds today carries almost none of that weight, and millennials are one of the last generations who instinctively understand the difference. There's the family computer, with one shared login and zero privacy. It usually lived in a hallway or a corner of the living room, screen visible to anyone walking by. You'd hear footsteps and instinctively minimize whatever you were doing, not always out of guilt, just habit. There was no real expectation of digital privacy because there was no private digital space to begin with. That early lack of a personal device created a strange kind of public childhood online, years before anyone called it that or worried about it. You were practicing being watched long before social media made it a permanent condition. There's the screen name as a tiny act of identity. You agonized over it. Some combination of your name, your age, a number that meant something only to you. That screen name was arguably the first version of yourself you ever deliberately built for an audience. Identity researchers describe adolescence as the period where people first experiment with versions of who they might be. Millennials just happened to be the first generation to do some of that experimenting somewhere other people could actually see. And last, there's being told you'd grow out of it. You were anxious about something and told it would pass. You were sad and told to give it time. Nobody was being cruel. There just wasn't much language yet for what kids were actually feeling, so adults defaulted to patience and waiting it out instead of naming it. Millennials are often described as the generation that grew up to demand more emotional vocabulary than they were given, and that framing usually comes across as a complaint about how things used to be. But look at it from another angle. The people who grew up being told to simply wait it out also grew up learning that discomfort is temporary, that feelings move, that you don't have to fix something the moment it appears.
That's not nothing.
That's a kind of patience most generations before or after never had to practice in quite the same way. There's a reason this kind of nostalgia lands so personally, even though millions of people share the exact same memories. Psychologists have shown for years that the experiences we form between roughly age 10 and 20 don't just sit in memory, they become part of how we understand who we are. For millennials, that identity got built half in a world without screens and half in a world that was rapidly filling up with them. And almost nobody alive got to experience that exact transition in quite the same way. You waited for things. You built things slowly because there was no faster option. And somewhere in all of that waiting, you picked up a kind of patience that's becoming rarer every year. If any of this felt a little too familiar, and you're curious why habits from back then still shape how your brain handles focus, stress, or rest today, that's exactly what we dig into on this channel. Stick around because understanding where these patterns came from is the first step toward doing something about them.